What on earth are you suggesting? Mr. Vance's voice, sharp and laced with disdain, cut through the otherwise polite ambience of the upscale French restaurant. Even if someone manages to scrape into a decent university after an extra year of trying, they become a topic of amusement, a subject of quiet ridicule among people who matter. He adjusted his silk tie, his eyes cold. And regardless of how accomplished Olivia might be as a lawyer, if our son, Noah, is married to a woman whose brother is merely a high school dropout, our entire family, the Vance name, will be utterly humiliated. A laughingstock in our circles. The very notion sends a shiver down my spine. It's simply appalling. He continued, his tone dripping with condescension. I had, quite naturally, assumed you hailed from a family of means, Liam. I presumed that even after the unfortunate passing of your parents, both you and Olivia would have completed your university educations, especially considering Olivia's rather impressive credentials. It was a significant oversight on my part, a regrettable lapse, not to have more thoroughly investigated her sibling, her only brother. Frankly, it's beyond embarrassing. It's a social stain that he didn't even complete high school. I sat there, the weight of his words pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. I couldn't believe these were the pronouncements of the man and woman who would soon be my dear sister Olivia's in-laws. The sheer audacity, the cold, calculated cruelty. I never imagined anyone, especially people of their supposed standing, could utter such venomous things with such ease. And that dinner, that dreadful evening, was only the beginning. Later, during the wedding reception itself, I was forced to endure a barrage of thinly veiled insults and outright harassment from the Vance family and their equally snobbish relatives. The shock, the raw humiliation of seeing what they'd done with my seating arrangement, is something I can still barely articulate, even now. Instead of a neatly printed place card like every other guest, there was a shabbily torn piece of paper. Scrawled messily across it in bold, red ballpoint pen were the words, Liam Miller, high school dropout deadbeat. My fiancée, Chloe, who was seated beside me, saw it at the same moment. Her face, usually so expressive and warm, became a mask of stunned disbelief, then cold anger. She muttered under her breath, her voice a low, dangerous hum. If these are the sort of people who run Vance and Associates law firm and Vance General Hospital, perhaps it wouldn't be such a terrible loss to the community if both establishments faced a significant downturn in their fortunes. At first, Noah's parents and their coterie of relatives openly snickered and laughed, pointing not so subtly in my direction. But as the evening wore on, and as they gradually, and much to their horror, learned who I truly was and what my actual standing in the business community had become, I watched the blood drain from their faces, their smug expressions replaced by a visible, almost comical pallor. My name is Liam Miller, and I am 38 years old. I work at Carter's Foods, a community-focused supermarket in our Midwestern town, a business initially run by a close friend of my late father, Mr. Carter. I have a younger sister, Olivia. Right now, as these memories flood back, I recall the day I was on my way to attend her wedding reception. A day I had anticipated with a mixture of joy and trepidation. Olivia, then 28, was marrying a young man named Noah Vance. Noah was 29, a recent graduate from the medical program at our local state university, and he was just starting his career as a young doctor at Vance General Hospital, which, as fate would have it, was owned by his father. Olivia, a bright and dedicated lawyer, worked at Vance and Associates law firm, also owned by Noah's father, Mr. Vance. She and Noah had met during their university days, their relationship blossoming over shared dreams and late-night study sessions. Their connection deepened quickly, and soon enough, they decided to get married, their future seemingly bright and full of promise. I remember Olivia calling me, her voice bubbling with excitement, a few weeks before the wedding. Liam, I need to go visit Mom and Dad's grave soon, she'd said, a touch of solemnity entering her tone. I want to share the wonderful news with them, to tell them all about Noah and our plans. Yes, Olivia, that's a very good idea. I had replied, my heart swelling with a familiar mix of pride and sorrow. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm sure they'd be so incredibly happy for you. As I spoke those words to Olivia, a torrent of memories, a lifetime of moments since our parents were so cruelly taken from us, washed over me with an almost physical force. It was about 20 years ago, a lifetime ago it felt. Our parents, the center of our small, happy world, lost their lives in a devastating car accident on a rainy Tuesday evening. At the time, I was just a sophomore in high school, barely a man myself, and Olivia, my bright-eyed Olivia, was still in elementary school, too young to fully comprehend the magnitude of our loss. The sudden, violent absence of our parents shattered our lives, turning everything upside down in an instant. We lost not just them, but the sense of security and warmth that had always defined our home. Financially and emotionally, we were adrift. For a period, we stayed with my father's dear friend, Mr. David Carter, a kind and generous man who owned the local supermarket, Carter's Foods. He and his wife opened their home to us without a second thought. However, I was determined not to be a burden, and I decided we should move into a small apartment of our own even before I was due to graduate from high school. Mr. Carter had insisted we could stay as long as we needed, at least until I finished school. But I couldn't bear the thought of relying on his charity indefinitely. I felt an overwhelming responsibility for Olivia, and I knew I had to stand on my own 2 feet for her sake. Mr. Carter tried his best to persuade me, to convince me to at least get my high school diploma, but my mind was resolutely made up. My path was clear, even if it was a difficult one. After much careful consideration, and sifting through what little they had, we found that our parents had left us some modest savings. Combined with the insurance money from the accident, it was just enough to cover our basic living expenses for a short while, to give us a fragile buffer. Almost immediately, I started working. Mr. Carter, understanding my fierce need for independence and my dedication to Olivia, offered me a job at Carter's Foods, stacking shelves, working the register, doing whatever needed to be done. To this day, nearly 2 decades later, the depth of my gratitude to Mr. Carter for that lifeline, for his unwavering belief in me, remains immeasurable. Those early years were a struggle, living each day with the heavy cloak of grief from losing our parents, compounded by the constant, gnawing worry about money, about making ends meet. But through it all, I made sure Olivia felt secure. I told her, repeatedly, that she shouldn't worry her pretty little head about finances, that she should just focus on being a child, on her studies, on living her life as she had before, as much as possible. I always tried to keep things bright and hopeful for her, even when my own heart was heavy with unspoken fears. When she reached middle school, the truth of my situation, my sacrifice, finally came to light. She found out, I'm not even sure how, that I had dropped out of high school to work full-time to support us. Her innocent world was, I think, a little shaken. Liam, is it? Is it really okay for me to go to high school next year? She asked me one evening, her voice small and uncertain, her eyes searching mine. I mean, you're already working so hard, every single day. A shadow crossed her usually bright face. Shouldn't I? Shouldn't I start working too after middle school? To help out. She started saying things like that, her young mind grappling with responsibilities far beyond her years. My heart ached to hear her worry so. What are you talking about, Olivia? I said, trying to keep my voice gentle but firm, pulling her into a comforting hug. Why do you think I'm working so hard, if not for you? I have a responsibility, a duty, to help you grow up safe and sound, to make sure you have every opportunity. I'm your big brother, aren't I? Of course, it's my job, my privilege, to look after you, to provide for you. Yeah, but Liam, aren't you the only one sacrificing everything? She persisted, her brow furrowed with a seriousness that didn't belong on such a young face. I wonder if it's okay like this with me getting everything and you giving up so much. Don't you ever think of it as a sacrifice, Olivia? I told her, looking her straight in the eye. It's not a sacrifice when you do it for family, for someone you love more than anything. It's fine. Honestly, it's more than fine. I just want you to go to high school, to study hard, and to graduate without a single worry in the world. Besides, I added, trying to lighten the mood with a half-truth, I wasn't exactly a star student anyway, remember? And Mr. Carter gave me a job at Carter's Foods, and I genuinely enjoy it there. The people are great, and I'm learning a lot. What? Really? Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope returning to them. You really like your job? So, so I can actually go to high school and not worry? Of course you can, silly, I said, ruffling her hair. You're incredibly smart, Olivia. Way smarter than I ever was. You need to study as much as you can, learn everything they can teach you, and make sure you stay the amazing little sister I'm so incredibly proud of. Okay, Liam, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Okay, I understand. Then she hugged me tight and added, and I'm proud of you too, my brother. So proud. After that heartfelt conversation, Olivia poured her entire being into her studies, a new determination shining in her eyes, and she went on to high school. Maybe it was because she felt a deep sense of gratitude towards me, or perhaps it was her own innate drive, but she was always deeply, almost fiercely, committed to her academics, consistently ranking at the top of her class year after year. Even so, despite her academic brilliance, as graduation approached, she seemed intent on getting a job immediately after finishing high school. Probably out of lingering consideration for my financial situation for the years I had toiled. I'm going to get a job after I graduate from high school, she announced one afternoon, her tone resolute. We were at a three-way meeting with her guidance counselor, Mr. Harrison, to discuss her future plans, and Olivia was firm on this point. Mr. Harrison, a kind, thoughtful man who had always encouraged Olivia, looked quite surprised by her declaration. Olivia, I understand your family's financial situation. I truly do, he said gently, adjusting his glasses. But with grades as exceptional as yours, you could easily get into the state university. Very likely with significant tuition waivers and scholarships, he encouraged her, his belief in her potential evident. I immediately agreed with Mr. Harrison, nodding emphatically. Olivia, please don't worry about tuition fees, not for a second, I interjected. Why are you so insistent on not going to college? Mr. Harrison is even offering his support and guidance, isn't he? We should listen. Well, Olivia began, her gaze dropping to her hands clasped in her lap. It's hard knowing you're making so many sacrifices for me, Liam. Her voice was soft, tinged with guilt. Don't you have things you want to do? Dreams you've put on hold? You're putting absolutely everything aside just to prioritize my future, my education. I can't be the only one who gets to finish high school and then go on to college while you. She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. And even with scholarships, Mr. Harrison, they probably wouldn't cover everything, would they? Living expenses, books. It all adds up. I'll cover whatever is missing, Olivia, I stated firmly, leaving no room for argument. My performance at Carter's Foods is being recognized. Mr. Carter has been really good to me, and my salary is expected to go up soon. Covering your tuition and expenses won't be an issue, I promise you. I leaned forward, trying to impress upon her the importance of this opportunity. Look, don't think twice about it. Please. If your grades were only good enough to get into some second-tier college, like mine probably would have been, even if I had worked my tail off, I wouldn't be pushing you this hard. But with your current grades, Olivia, you can get into a great university, the best in the state, that will open up so many more doors for you. So many incredible opportunities that I never had. If it makes you feel any better, I offered, trying a different tack, we can treat whatever I cover as a loan, a formal agreement. When you graduate and get a fantastic, high-paying job, which I know you will, then you can pay me back, every cent, with interest if you like. Olivia looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. Do you know how many years it would take me to get through college, Liam? And then law school, if I really pursued that path? You'd be living on an even tighter budget all that time for so long. Are you? Are you really, truly okay with that kind of commitment? Come on, Olivia, I said, my voice softening. We've supported each other, leaned on each other, ever since we lost Mom and Dad. We're a team. There's absolutely no reason for you to hold back now, not when you're so close to achieving something amazing. A long silence hung in the air before Olivia finally looked up, a small, hesitant smile gracing her lips. If, if you're really willing to go that far for me, Liam, then I'll go to college. Tears welled up in her eyes. Thank you. Her voice was a choked whisper. Really, thank you, my brother. I don't know what I'd do without you. Though it took some heartfelt persuasion and perhaps a little emotional blackmail on my part, Olivia finally agreed to pursue further education, to chase her dreams. Witnessing our raw, emotional conversation, Mr. Harrison, bless his kind soul, discreetly dabbed at his eyes with a neatly folded handkerchief, clearly moved by our bond. Olivia, true to her ambitious nature, declared she would aim for the law program at Midwestern State University, our local state university, and one with a very reputable law school. It was one of the toughest programs in the region to get into, demanding exceptional grades and dedication, but Olivia faced the pressure head-on, undaunted, and passed her entrance exams with flying colors on her very first try. She didn't just attend. She excelled, graduating at the top of her class with honors, never needing to repeat a single course, a testament to her intellect and her relentless hard work. While still in university, she accomplished the incredible feat of passing the preliminary legal exam, and later, shortly after graduation, she passed the bar exam as well, again on her first attempt. She was so exceptionally brilliant, so driven and successful, that I sometimes jokingly wondered if we were even truly related, if some hospital mix-up hadn't occurred all those years ago. Then, after a successful summer clerkship, she joined Vance and Associates law firm, the prestigious firm where she currently works. They saw her talent and offered her a position without a moment's hesitation upon her passing the bar. Now, Olivia is a highly successful, respected young attorney, making a name for herself. At the time, back when she was first deciding on her major, I didn't fully understand why she was so fiercely determined to become a lawyer, why that particular path called to her so strongly. It turned out that witnessing my struggles, seeing me navigate the bewildering maze of legal paperwork and bureaucracy after our parents passed away and we lost our home, had left a profound impact on her young mind. She had felt helpless then, watching me, her older brother, trying to shield her from the harsh realities while simultaneously battling forces I barely understood. She wanted to use her knowledge, her sharp intellect, to help others in need, to be a voice for those who felt lost and overwhelmed by the system, just like we had been all those years ago. When I first learned of Olivia's true motivation, the depth of her empathy and her desire to make a difference, I was truly, profoundly moved by her thoughtfulness, by the compassionate young woman she had become. If she hadn't gone to college, if she hadn't pursued her law degree with such tenacity, she wouldn't be the brilliant lawyer she is today, already making a positive impact. I am incredibly, eternally grateful to Mr. Harrison for his unwavering encouragement, for seeing her potential and urging her to continue her education. And, if I'm being honest, I'm immensely glad, and a little proud, that I managed to convince her, that I played a small part in her incredible journey. Noah, Olivia's Vance, also knew about our shared history, our struggles, and the sacrifices made along the way. Olivia had, at some point, shared our story with him. Well, it seems he was drawn to Olivia not only for her undeniable skills as a sharp, incisive lawyer, but also for her sincerity, her genuine warmth, and the quiet strength that radiated from her, which ultimately led him to ask her out, and then to propose. I remember meeting Noah for the first time properly after they got serious. "I've heard a lot about you from Olivia, Liam," he had said, his smile genuine and his handshake firm. "She's told me how you stepped in, how you protected her and provided for her after your parents passed away. That's truly admirable." "Oh, please, Noah. Protect is a bit much, I replied modestly, feeling a slight flush creep up my neck. We've simply helped each other along, leaned on each other. That's what family does. Though I felt an immense, almost overwhelming pride in the accomplished, compassionate woman Olivia had become, my deepest, most fervent wish was for her happiness, for her to find lasting joy and companionship in her marriage to Noah. I planned to celebrate their union wholeheartedly, with every fiber of my being. But reality, as it often does, can be a harsh and unforgiving teacher, and one particular concern, a small, dark cloud on the horizon, weighed heavily on my mind in the weeks leading up to the wedding. I had the distinct, and as it turned out, deeply unpleasant opportunity to meet Noah along with his parents, Mr. Arthur Vance and Mrs. Eleanor Vance, for a formal introduction, a pre-wedding face-to-face meeting. It was meant to be a cordial affair, a chance for the families to connect. However, during that encounter, something happened, a shift in the atmosphere so profound, so chilling, that it left me feeling profoundly uneasy, a knot of dread tightening in my stomach. The meeting took place at an upscale French restaurant in the city, a place of hushed tones and gleaming silverware. The very same restaurant where Noah and Olivia planned to hold their wedding reception. It was Mr. Vance's choice, naturally. Noah's father, Mr. Arthur Vance, is a prominent lawyer, the founder and senior partner of Vance and Associates law firm, and also, as I learned, the owner of Vance General Hospital. He appeared to be in his early 60s, a man who exuded an air of authority and immense self-importance. With his intelligent, somewhat intense, and appraising gaze, his impeccably tailored suit, and his dismissive wave to the maitre d', he looked every bit the part of a powerful and perhaps ruthless man of law and business. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, his wife, was equally formidable, her expression a carefully constructed mask of polite interest that didn't quite reach her cold, assessing eyes. I informed Mr. and Mrs. Vance that I was there representing our family on behalf of our late parents, to offer our blessings and support for Olivia and Noah. "Ah, yes, Liam," Mr. Vance began, her voice smooth and condescending. "Noah has mentioned your parents, of course. A tragic loss, I understand. It must have been a challenging time for both you and young Olivia." Mrs. Vance chimed in, her voice a cultivated, melodic drawl, though her eyes scanned me critically from head to toe. "Yes, ma'am, we certainly did go through some very difficult times," I replied, trying to keep my tone even and respectful. But looking back now, with Olivia grown and so successful, it wasn't all bad. We learned a lot about resilience, about each other. Oh my, such a remarkably mature perspective for someone so young in experience. Mrs. Vance cooed, though the compliment felt backhanded, patronizing. I'd expect nothing less from the brother of the accomplished Olivia, of course. She is a true asset to my husband's firm. "No, no, please," I said, genuinely. "Olivia has always had it together far more than I ever have. She's the remarkable one. She's done so much better, achieved so much more than I could have imagined. Honestly, she often makes me look rather inadequate in comparison," I added with a self-deprecating smile. I wasn't just being modest for their benefit. I genuinely, deeply meant every word. Olivia truly is the kind of sister, the kind of person, where finding a single flaw is a nearly impossible task. She's exceptional. Even so, Mr. Vance interjected, his sharp eyes fixed on me, a calculating glint within them. "To have raised Olivia in place of your parents, to have supported her, as you say, through her education at the state university, your own background, your own achievements, must surely be quite impressive as well." "Yes, indeed, one would certainly assume so," Mrs. Vance added, her gaze unwavering. "So, Liam, tell us," Mr. Vance continued, leaning forward slightly, his tone casual, but his eyes intent. "What is it that you do for a living now?" A knot of apprehension tightened in my chest. I had a feeling this was where the polite facade might begin to crumble. "I'm currently working at Carter's Foods," I replied, my voice steady. It's a local supermarket run by Mr. Carter, a very close friend of my late father's. The moment I answered, the polite, almost forced smiles on their faces didn't just vanish. They seemed to freeze, then curdle into something else entirely. The temperature in our little alcove of the restaurant seemed to drop several degrees. Carter's Foods? Mr. Vance repeated slowly as if the name itself left a bad taste in his mouth. A supermarket. And what kind of work, precisely, do you do there, Liam? Mrs. Vance inquired, her voice now stripped of its earlier false warmth, replaced by a distinct chill. I mainly handle stocking, customer service, and day-to-day operations, I explained. I've been there for many years. I started on the floor and have worked my way up. Stocking shelves and customer service. At a local grocery store, Mr. Vance murmured, more to himself than to me. His expression unreadable, but far from approving. He then fixed me with a direct, almost prosecutorial stare. If you don't mind my asking, Liam, which university did you attend? My heart sank. This was the moment I had dreaded. I didn't go to university, sir, I admitted, my voice quieter than I intended. I joined Carter's Foods after I had to leave high school before graduating. What? Mr. Vance exclaimed, her voice suddenly sharp, no longer bothering to hide his incredulity. Wait just a moment. Did I hear you correctly? When they uttered that sharp, what? Both Mr. and Mrs. Vance briefly, almost imperceptibly, glanced towards Noah and Olivia, as if to gauge their reactions or perhaps to confirm they were out of earshot. It just so happened to be the precise moment when Noah and Olivia were prompted by the restaurant's event coordinator to step away and preview some of the floral arrangements for their upcoming wedding reception. So they were about to head over to another part of the venue. Once Noah and Olivia had moved a little distance away, their backs to us, the Vances' expressions transformed completely, hardening into masks of undisguised disdain and disapproval. They leaned in conspiratorially towards me across the small table, closing the physical distance, their voices dropping to low, intense hisses. Tell me, Liam, Mr. Vance demanded, his eyes like chips of ice. Are you actually saying to us that you didn't even graduate from high school? Yes, sir, that's correct, I confirmed, meeting his gaze as steadily as I could, though my stomach churned. So, you effectively only have a middle school education, is that it? Mrs. Vance interjected, her voice dripping with contempt, her perfectly manicured hand fluttering to her chest as if in shock. Yes, ma'am, essentially, I conceded, the old shame, the familiar sting of that label, washing over me. This is utterly unbelievable, Mr. Vance exploded, though he kept her voice low enough not to cause a scene. His face was flushed with anger. Had we known this, had we been aware of this deficiency, we would never, absolutely never, have approved of this marriage in the first place. Indeed, Mrs. Vance echoed, her voice trembling with indignation. Even now, perhaps we should seriously consider halting these proceedings immediately. We must discuss this again as a family, as a matter of utmost urgency. This changes everything. Now, hold on a moment, Eleanor, Mr. Vance said, though his own fury was palpable. The wedding date has already been announced, invitations sent. Our social circle is aware. Calling it off at this late stage would be difficult, scandalous even. Besides, he added, a flicker of something calculating in his eyes, Olivia herself, as a lawyer at my firm and a graduate of the state university, remains an ideal bride, a suitable match for Noah in terms of her own credentials. Yes, Arthur, you are correct. She is not the problem here, not at all, Mrs. Vance conceded, her gaze returning to me, filled with renewed scorn. Excuse me, I finally managed to say, my voice tight with suppressed emotion. But what exactly are you trying to say, Mr. Vance, Mrs. Vance? Oh, don't act as if you don't understand perfectly well, young man, Mrs. Vance snapped, her composure slipping. You, Liam Miller, are a colossal problem. A significant, embarrassing problem. Look, Mr. Vance said, her voice hard and uncompromising. We run a respected law firm, Vance and Associates. We own Vance General Hospital. Our entire family, our extended family, is well established, highly educated, and professionally successful. Many of our relatives run substantial businesses or hold senior, influential positions in large, reputable corporations. Every single one of them, without exception, attended a prestigious university and holds at least one, if not multiple, advanced degrees. It's a basic expectation in our world, Liam. A fundamental requirement. Ha, I see, I murmured, the implications of their words sinking in like shards of glass. I see what you mean. You say that? Mrs. Vance scoffed, her lip curling in a sneer. Is that all you can muster in response? I see. That kind of lackluster, uncomprehending reply is precisely what one might expect. Don't you truly understand the gravity of what we're getting at here? The sheer unsuitability of it all? I knew, of course, that they weren't happy with my educational background, that my lack of a high school diploma, let alone a college degree, was anathema to them. But their abrupt, vicious change in attitude, the sheer contempt radiating from them, left me too stunned, too winded, to respond properly or to defend myself. In our family, Liam, Mr. Vance continued, her voice low and menacing, it's considered a source of profound shame if someone even has to repeat a year to get into a good university, let alone fail to attend one at all. You probably don't understand this coming from your circumstances, but having a questionable, or in your case, a non-existent academic record beyond basic schooling is already a deep disgrace, a social blight. Well, there's nothing I can do about my past now, sir, I said, my voice barely a whisper, the fight draining out of me. Let me be perfectly, unequivocally clear, Mr. Vance stated, his eyes narrowed. Even someone who has to retake examinations multiple times to finally gain entry into a top-tier school would be subtly, or not so subtly, laughed at, looked down upon within our circles. Now, imagine this. If people, our friends, our colleagues, our clients, were to discover that our son Noah married a woman whose only brother is a high school dropout, a mere supermarket clerk. Just the thought of the inevitable ridicule, the snide remarks, the damage to our family's reputation. It makes me shudder with humiliation. Mrs. Vance fanned herself dramatically with her hand, though the restaurant was perfectly climate-controlled. I had naturally assumed, given Olivia's impeccable background and her position at your firm, Arthur, that you came from a similarly respectable, perhaps even wealthy family, she directed at me. I presumed that both siblings, even after losing your parents, would have undoubtedly attended and graduated from reputable universities. I foolishly thought Olivia's own sterling credentials made it entirely unnecessary to investigate you, her brother, more closely. I never, ever expected, not even in my wildest imaginings, that you would turn out to be a high school dropout. It's truly, deeply, mortifyingly embarrassing for us all, she concluded, her voice filled with a venom that stung more than any physical blow. The words, so casually cruel, so dismissive of my entire life's efforts and sacrifices, were utterly humiliating. I was left speechless, a hollow ache spreading through my chest. Still, Mr. Vance said after a moment, a new calculating tone entering her voice. With things having progressed this far, with the wedding so close, in that case, we will simply have to manage the perception. We will inform our family and close associates that Olivia and you are only nominally related, a mere formality of connection. Perhaps that you were estranged for many years. And you, Liam, he fixed me with a steely glare. You must promise, you must swear to us that you will never, under any circumstances, claim that you raised her in place of your parents, or that you had any significant role in her upbringing or her success. Do you understand me perfectly? What? Excuse me, I stammered, aghast at this new, outrageous demand. Don't you dare act so resistant, so uncooperative, Mrs. Vance hissed, leaning even closer, her perfume cloying and suffocating. People like you, from your sort of background, once they get a foot in the door of a respectable family, always, invariably, find ways to beg for money, to insinuate themselves into financial affairs, or, heaven forbid, to sneak their way into inheritance plans. I'm quite sure you're already concocting some scheme, something of that nature. Exactly, Eleanor, Mr. Vance affirmed, nodding gravely. Listen very closely to me now, Liam, he warned, her voice a low growl. This is not a request. It is a directive. You will not loiter around Olivia unnecessarily after the marriage, nor will you ever bring up any talk of loans, investments, or financial assistance to us or to Noah and Olivia. I expect you to promise this, here and now, unequivocally. If you do not give us your solemn word, we will take immediate steps to sever all contact, or, better yet, we will have our legal team ensure that you are formally restrained from approaching any member of our family. This is not an idle threat, young man. This is a statement of intent. Do you understand the gravity of your situation? I simply couldn't believe these words. These vile accusations and ultimatums were actually coming from the mouths of Olivia's future in-laws, the people who were supposed to welcome her into their family. I had never in my entire life experienced such a demeaning, insulting, and utterly contemptuous encounter. A furious heat rose within me, and I barely, just barely, managed to hold back the torrent of angry words, the bitter retorts that clawed at my throat. I remained there, clenching my fists under the table, my jaw tight, my silence heavy weight in the oppressive atmosphere they had created. If I let Olivia know, if I even hinted at the profound humiliation, the utter disrespect I had just been subjected to, it might very well disrupt her relationship with Noah, perhaps even jeopardize their entire future together. And they were, despite all this, a seemingly perfect match, deeply in love. The very last thing I wanted, the absolute last thing, was for their relationship, their happiness, to fall apart because of me or because of his parents' bigotry. There's no need for any such worry, Mr. Vance, Mrs. Vance, I finally managed to say, my voice strained but controlled. I assure you, I will not ask you or Olivia or Noah for any money in any form, not now, not ever. PFFT will certainly remember you said that, Liam. Mrs. Vance sniffed dismissively, clearly unconvinced. And be warned, any suspicious behavior, any hint of financial maneuvering on your part, and we won't hesitate for a second to take decisive action. But, I added, my voice gaining a new firmness, a line I would not allow them to cross. There is one thing I must make absolutely clear to both of you. Olivia and I, we have supported each other, we have been each other's rock, for all these years, ever since we lost our parents. No matter what your request, no matter what your demands, I will not, I repeat, will not, cut ties with my sister. I am not going to stop seeing her. I am not going to abandon our relationship, and I will not compromise on that, not for anyone. What an absolute outrage! Mrs. Vance gasped, her eyes wide with fury. This is preposterous. This is nothing short of harassment, Arthur. Emotional blackmail. You should contact our lawyers right away, this instant. Just as Mrs. Vance was about to berate me further, her voice rising in pitch, Noah and Olivia returned from their discussion about the floral arrangements, their faces bright with excitement about the wedding plans. The Vances, with a speed and duplicity that was almost breathtaking, instantly plastered cheerful, welcoming expressions onto their faces, as if nothing whatsoever had transpired, as if the preceding venomous exchange had been nothing but a figment of my imagination. From that precise point on, for the remainder of that excruciatingly uncomfortable dinner, both the Vances and I maintained our composure, our carefully constructed masks of civility in front of the blissfully unaware couple. Somehow, we managed to get through the rest of the interaction, the polite charade continuing until the day of the wedding reception itself finally arrived. I naturally did not have any more direct encounters or conversations with Mr. or Mrs. Vance in the interim. I avoided them, and they, I'm sure, were content to avoid me. And true to my silent vow, I hadn't shared a single word with Olivia about what had truly transpired that dreadful day at the restaurant, about the depth of her future in-laws' prejudice and contempt for me. Her happiness was too precious to risk. However, I had confided in the woman who was accompanying me to the reception today, the woman who was my rock. Her name is Chloe. Chloe is more than just my fiancée. She's an important partner to me, both personally in my life and professionally in my work. We plan to marry soon, hopefully in the coming year, and she's also grown quite close to Olivia, developing a genuine sisterly bond with her. Olivia, knowing this, had also personally invited Chloe to the wedding, so she was attending the reception with me as my beloved partner. At first, I hadn't intended to tell anyone, not even Chloe, about the soul-crushing humiliation I experienced at the hands of the Vances. I thought I could just swallow it, bury it deep inside. But Chloe, with her sharp intuition and her deep understanding of me, quickly sensed that something was weighing heavily on my mind, that I was carrying a burden I wasn't sharing. She gently coaxed it out of me, and deep down, I think a part of me desperately needed someone to listen, someone to understand. So I ended up confiding in her, recounting the whole sordid affair, the Vance's cruel words, their outrageous demands. Chloe had listened patiently, her expression growing increasingly stormy, her usual bright eyes darkening with a fierce, protective anger on my behalf. "So, today's the big day, Liam," Chloe said now, as we drove towards the reception venue, her voice deceptively light, but with an undercurrent I recognized. "The day you're finally going to put those horribly rude, insufferable in-laws firmly in their place, right?" A small, almost predatory smile played on her lips. "What? No way, Chloe," I exclaimed, startled by her suggestion, though a part of me was warmed by her fierce loyalty. If I did something like that, it would completely ruin the ceremony, Olivia, and Noah's special day. Besides, I added, shaking my head, I'm genuinely not interested in taking any action, no matter how satisfying it might feel in the moment. That would disrupt their wedding day. Regardless of what's happened, today is about them, not about me settling scores. "Oh, what a terrible shame," Chloe sighed dramatically, though her eyes twinkled with a hint of mischief. "A real pity. And here I thought you brought me along as your official backup, your secret weapon, for just that very reason. I was all prepared for a bit of strategic fireworks." "Come on, Chloe, be serious," I chuckled, despite the tension coiling in my stomach. "This isn't some kind mafia-style showdown at the OK Corral." "Ah, boring," she pouted playfully, then her expression turned more serious. "Well, they didn't insult me directly, those pretentious snobs. But hearing what they said to you, Liam, it still ticks me off, more than I can say." "Still," she conceded, squeezing my hand reassuringly. "It's Olivia's big day, her wedding. So I promise I won't do anything too wild, too Chloe-like." "Maybe I was a little too hasty in sharing all the gory details with you," I said, managing a weak smile. "You look like you're ready to declare war." We looked at each other then, and a genuine laugh, a moment of shared understanding and affection, passed between us, easing some of the tightness in my chest. Chloe's fiery spirit, her refusal to suffer fools gladly, sometimes threw me off balance. It was true. But more often than not, infinitely more often, she had my back, unwavering and strong. Having her by my side, especially today, gave me a profound sense of security, a feeling that I wasn't facing this alone, in more ways than one. When we arrived at the elegant hotel venue, the air already buzzing with the happy chatter of guests, we began looking for the seats reserved for the bride's family, for Olivia's side. Since Noah was the son of the prominent Arthur Vance, and Olivia herself was a successful lawyer, the wedding was an extravagant affair, a grand production with many distinguished guests in attendance, a veritable who's who of the local legal and medical communities. Even from across the opulent, flower-decked ballroom, I quickly spotted Mr. and Mrs. Vance, holding court at the far end of the groom's family section, their expressions radiating smug satisfaction. I made a conscious effort to avoid direct eye contact with them, determined to prevent any unnecessary confrontation, any spark that might ignite an unpleasant scene. There they are, Liam at the head table, far end, Chloe informed me quietly. Her eyes narrowed as she observed them for a moment. She was always watching out for me. And, just as predicted, they're looking over in this general direction with the most spiteful, self-satisfied smiles plastered on their faces. Figures, I sighed, a wave of resignation washing over me. That's just typical of them, isn't it? Well, if all I have to endure today are a few condescending laughs and some pointed glares from them and their cronies, then that's perfectly fine by me. I can handle that. The most important thing today, the only thing that truly mattered, was celebrating Olivia and Noah, witnessing their happiness. I absolutely did not want to waste a single precious thought, a single ounce of emotional energy, on anything as trivial or as toxic as the Vances. Petty games. With that resolve firmly in mind, we located Chloe's assigned seat first, a beautifully calligraphed place card marking her spot. Then I looked at the nameplate, or what should have been a nameplate, on the seat directly beside hers, the seat I naturally assumed would be mine. What? My mind, for a terrifying second, went completely blank. A cold dread washed over me. Where my name, Liam Miller, should have been elegantly written, just like Chloe's, there was no sign of a proper place card at all. Scrawled messily across it in bold, red ballpoint pen were the words, Liam Miller, high school dropout deadbeat. The letters were scrolled messily, almost illegibly, in a thick, angry red ballpoint pen, the ink bleeding slightly into the cheap paper. The insult was so blatant, so childishly cruel, it took my breath away. No one, absolutely no one but the Vances could have orchestrated, or would have even stooped to, a childish, malicious prank like this. My blood ran cold, then hot with a sudden surge of fury. I instinctively, uncontrollably, shot a glare, a look of pure, unadulterated anger, towards the groom's family section, directly at Mr. and Mrs. Vance. And there they were. The Vances, along with a few of their nearby family members, their snobbish relatives, were watching me, their faces alight with malicious glee. And then they burst into derisive, barely suppressed laughter. It was so painfully, humiliatingly clear. My educational background, my perceived lack of social standing, had become a source of perverse amusement, a cruel inside joke among the Vance clan and their entitled relatives. The Vances must have meticulously set this up in advance, informing their chosen circle of my deficiency and then positioning themselves to watch, to savor my reaction as I discovered the insulting, demeaning name plate. Their sense of humor, their idea of a wedding day jest, was truly, utterly revolting. It was beyond contemptible. Seeing me freeze momentarily upon reading those hateful words, my face no doubt registering the shock and the sting, only seemed to make them laugh harder, to derive even more pleasure from my public humiliation. Mrs. Vance, I noted with a fresh wave of disgust, was even clapping her hands together softly in delight, her shoulders shaking with open, unrestrained laughter. What truly awful, despicable people they were. But with the large venue bustling with lively conversations, the clinking of glasses, and the occasional cheer from other tables, no one else, no other uninvolved guests, seemed to notice the ugly little scene unfolding at their table, the quiet torment they were inflicting. My first instinct was to turn and walk away, to leave without taking my seat, without uttering a single word. If I sat there quietly, if I endured this public shaming in silence, they would undoubtedly continue laughing at me, mocking me endlessly throughout the entire reception. And who knew, this might just be the opening act with more subtle or not so subtle insults and humiliations lined up for me as the day progressed. As much as I regretted the thought of upsetting Olivia, I simply couldn't, I wouldn't endure any more of their calculated cruelty, their venomous disdain. My limit had been reached. Wait, Liam. However, just as I was about to turn on my heel and make for the exit, Chloe quickly came after me, her hand gently but firmly grabbing my arm, stopping me in my tracks. Her eyes, when I met them, were filled with a fierce, protective understanding. You've been holding back all this time, Liam. You've endured so much already. Just to celebrate Olivia and Noah today, right? She said, her voice low and steady, a calming anchor in the storm of my emotions. Don't forget how Olivia would feel, how heartbroken she would be if she noticed you weren't here, if you just disappeared from her wedding. Yeah, Chloe, you're absolutely right, I conceded, the anger slowly ebbing, replaced by a weary resignation and the familiar ache of wanting to protect my sister. She was right, of course. If I was going to get angry, if I was going to confront them, I should have done it that first time they insulted me. Back at that dreadful dinner. I had promised myself then, I had sworn to myself that I'd hold it in, that I'd endure anything for Olivia and Noah's sake, for their happiness on this day. But I was so close, so perilously close, to totally losing it, to letting my fury consume me. If you hadn't been here with me today, Chloe, I admitted, my voice hoarse with emotion, I think I would have stormed out of here by now. Wedding or no wedding. Thank you for stopping me, for being here. Ignoring the continued, though now slightly more subdued, sneers and the deliberate finger pointing emanating from the Vance's table. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and focused my attention back on the celebration, on the love and joy that was supposed to define this day. Before long, the bride and groom, our main stars, Olivia and Noah, entered the ballroom to a wave of enthusiastic applause and joyful cheers. Olivia looked radiant, absolutely breathtaking in her wedding gown, and Noah, beside her, beamed with pride and happiness. The guest speeches began soon after the main course was served. First up was D.R. Smith, the esteemed director of Vance General Hospital, where Noah worked, followed by Ms. Taylor, the distinguished head of Vance and Associates law firm, Olivia's boss. We then heard heartfelt and amusing anecdotes from various friends of the couple, and then, of course, from some of the groom's family members, a succession of Vances who spoke eloquently of Noah's many virtues. But then, as all the scheduled speeches seemed to have finished, a cold realization dawned on me. My turn, the speech from the bride's only brother, had never come. Olivia had specifically asked me months ago if I would give a speech, a toast to her and Noah. I had been deeply honored and had prepared it with my whole heart, carefully crafting words that I hoped would convey my love for her and my best wishes for their future. Even though the groom's family speeches had clearly concluded and the MC was moving on to the cake cutting, none of the event staff had approached me. No one had come to let me know it was my turn to speak. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach. When I discreetly checked with one of the nearby catering staff, a young woman with a kind face, she returned a few minutes later with a surprising and deeply unsettling response. "Sir," she said, looking apologetic, "I've just confirmed with the event manager. It appears that just before the ceremony began this afternoon, one of the groom's senior family members requested that the bride's family representative's speech be canceled." She hesitated, then continued. "They stated that it wasn't properly prepared, and therefore it was removed from the official schedule." My gaze, cold and hard, immediately shot back to the Vance's table. Sure enough, Mr. and Mrs. Vance were whispering animatedly to each other, their heads close together, casting furtive, smirking glances in my direction, their shoulders shaking with suppressed, triumphant laughter. That was it. I'd reached my absolute limit. This was a deliberate, calculated humiliation too far. Trying not to interrupt the proceedings or draw undue attention, I moved stealthily along the wall of the ballroom, making my way over to where the Vances were seated, their smugness a palpable aura around them. Chloe, sensing my intent, followed me silently, a protective shadow at my side. The Vances looked up as I approached. Their eyes, when they met mine, were cold, dismissive, and filled with an arrogant disdain that made my blood boil. "What on earth do you think you're trying to pull now, huh?" Mr. Vance sneered, her voice a low, contemptuous rumble. "Causing a scene, are we?" "What am I talking about?" I retorted, my voice dangerously calm, though a storm raged within me. I think the more pertinent question, Mr. Vance, is what are you and Mrs. Vance talking about? What fresh insult have you concocted? Do you really not remember what I explicitly told you the other day at our little dinner? About maintaining a low profile? He scoffed. What? Just what are you blathering on about now, young man? Mrs. Vance chimed in, her voice shrill with feigned ignorance. Oh, really? I pressed my patience, wearing dangerously thin. Is that how you want to play this? Have you genuinely forgotten already? Or do you simply lack the basic human understanding, the common decency, to comprehend your own appalling behavior? If so, if your memories are that selective or your intellect's that deficient, then that's truly deeply unfortunate for you both. They waved their hands dismissively, as if brushing away an annoying insect, their arrogance breathtaking. What do you think you're doing, Mr. Vance, canceling my speech like that behind my back? I demanded, my voice rising slightly despite my efforts to control it. Don't be utterly ridiculous, Liam, Mrs. Vance scoffed, her eyes glittering with malice. The very fact that you would even consider speaking, that you would presume to address this distinguished assembly, is frankly absurd, almost laughable. Once we realized to our horror that you actually intended to go through with it, to stand up and potentially embarrass us all, we had no choice, absolutely no choice, but to take the proper, necessary measures to prevent such a catastrophe. Having an uneducated, ill-spoken man like yourself give a speech at our son's wedding, at an event of this caliber, would be a lifelong embarrassment, a stain on our family's reputation, Mr. Vance declared, her voice dripping with condescension. We are simply doing what any responsible, concerned parents would do in such a delicate situation, protecting our family's honor. Around us, at the Vance's table, I noticed some of the groom's other family members, their relatives, stifling laughs, their eyes gleaming with amusement at my expense. And what conceivable right, do you have to insult me, to humiliate me and my sister on her wedding day? I shot back, my anger finally breaking through my carefully constructed composure. Did you really, honestly think you could come here and be treated as an equal, as one of us? Mrs. Vance sneered, her voice laced with venom. Know your place, you worthless, uneducated fool. Mr. Vance spat, his face contorted with rage. Don't you dare speak to me or any member of my family again. I'll be handling this entire unfortunate matter through legal channels from now on. If you so much as approach us or our family again after today, we'll make absolutely certain you pay dearly for it in every conceivable way. Keep that in mind, boy. You've been warned. As I stood there, trembling with a furious anger that I was barely managing to hold back, a shout, a roar of pure indignation building in my chest. Chloe, who had been watching this entire exchange silently, her expression growing colder and harder by the second, finally spoke. Her voice, when it came, was calm, clear, and carried an unmistakable edge of steel. Mr. Vance, Mrs. Vance, Chloe began, addressing them directly, though her eyes were fixed on me with a reassuring warmth. Liam, I must say, I never imagined, not even after what you told me, that they would be quite so overtly rude, so utterly classless. I'm truly, profoundly shocked by their appalling behavior. It's beyond belief. She then turned her gaze fully on me, a small, encouraging smile playing on her lips. Given this display, Liam, I don't think you need to hold back any longer regarding your future business decisions concerning Vance General Hospital or, for that matter, Vance and Associates law firm. And just who in blazes are you, young woman, to interfere in private family matters? Mr. Vance blustered, momentarily taken aback by Chloe's unexpected intervention and her authoritative tone. Oh, I apologize if I wasn't clear, Mr. Vance, Chloe replied, her voice smooth as silk but with an underlying threat. I was merely giving Mr. Miller, my considered business opinion as his partner. Excuse me? Mrs. Vance sputtered, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. Mr. Miller? Liam Miller, you mean? Who do you think you're talking about, girl? This nobody. I wasn't speaking to you, Mrs. Vance, Chloe stated coolly. not even gracing her with a direct look. "This is a private business discussion between Mr. Liam Miller and myself. Please don't trouble yourselves or concern yourselves with our professional conversation." "What? Mr. Liam Miller?" Mr. Vance repeated, a flicker of uncertainty, of dawning confusion in his eyes. He looked from Chloe to me and back again. "Yes, Mr. Vance," Chloe affirmed, her voice ringing with confidence. "The man standing before you, the man you have so egregiously insulted, is Mr. Liam Miller, the soon-to-be co-owner and chief operating officer of Carter's Foods. Oh, so he's some small-town grocery store manager now, is he?" Mr. Vance scoffed, though his bluster seemed slightly deflated. "Trying to inflate his importance, are we? And what, pray tell, does this grand coup of a local supermarket plan to do? Cut off our supply of lettuce?" He laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound, though some of his relatives looked less certain now. Chloe, with a calm, deliberate movement, pulled out her sleek smartphone. She quickly navigated to a web page and then handed the phone to Mr. Vance. It was the official website for Whole Foods, one of the largest and most respected food wholesale distributors in the entire Midwest. Displayed prominently on the screen was the Our Valued Partners section, and specifically, a recent press release announcing a major investment and strategic partnership with Carter's Foods, featuring a picture of me shaking hands with Mr. Samuel Cole, the president and CEO of Whole Foods, Chloe's father. The headline read, "Whole Foods and Carter's Foods forge powerful alliance to revolutionize community grocery experience." At first, Mr. Vance looked at the phone screen reluctantly, a hint of deep skepticism, of outright disbelief, clouding his eyes. He clearly thought it was some kind of elaborate hoax. But then, as he read the text, as he saw the official Whole Foods letterhead and the smiling face of its well-known CEO alongside mine, his expression suddenly tightened, his jaw clenched, and the color began to drain from his face. "Arthur, darling, what is it? What's wrong?" Mrs. Vance asked, sensing the sudden shift in her husband's demeanor, her voice laced with an uncharacteristic anxiety. This can't be right," Mr. Vance stammered, his eyes darting from the phone screen to my face and back again. "Whole Foods. Isn't this the primary food supplier for Vance General Hospital's cafeteria and patient meals? And a major corporate catering client for Vance and Associates law firm's events? No way," Mrs. Vance exclaimed, snatching the phone from her husband's trembling hand. "I'm not falling for such a lousy, transparent joke. This is preposterous." "That's perfectly fine, Mrs. Vance," Chloe said, her voice still calm, though a triumphant glint now danced in her eyes. "You don't have to believe what's on my phone, of course. After all, this is just my personal device. It could be fabricated, I suppose. Why don't you do yourselves a favor and check on your own device, Mr. Vance? Look up Whole Foods. Look up their recent announcements. Verify it for yourselves." Flustered, looking increasingly agitated, Mr. Vance fumbled for his own phone, his hands shaking slightly. He quickly, almost frantically, navigated to the Whole Foods corporate website. As he reached the press release section, as he saw the official announcement with my picture prominently displayed alongside Mr. Cole, his face, already pale, turned a ghastly shade of white. He looked as if he'd seen a ghost. "No, this has to be some kind of elaborate trick. A forgery," he choked out, her voice hoarse with disbelief and dawning horror. With that, Mr. Vance abruptly stood up, nearly knocking over his chair. He turned his back to us for a moment, his shoulders hunched, and seemed to start talking urgently, almost frantically, to someone on his phone, her voice a low, desperate murmur. He was likely, almost certainly, calling someone at Vance General Hospital, or perhaps at his law firm, to confirm, to verify if what Chloe and I had just revealed, what he was seeing with his own eyes, was indeed true. It was true. Just last month, I had officially taken on the role of incoming co-owner and coup of Carter's Foods, at the personal request of Mr. David Carter, my father's dear friend and my lifelong mentor. and with the significant backing and partnership of Mr. Samuel Cole of Cole Foods. I had only very recently stepped into this new, expanded position, the public announcements just beginning to roll out. The daughter of Mr. Cole, the president of Cole Foods, is of course Chloe, my brilliant and supportive fiancée. Mr. Carter, to whom I owe an immeasurable debt of gratitude, had been in declining health for a while and had decided it was time to pass on the legacy of the company he had built from the ground up. He wanted to ensure its future was in hands he trusted. He also, rather matchmakingly, expressed his heartfelt wish for me and Chloe, whom he adored, to marry and to run the business together. It has been nearly 20 years since I, a young man who had dropped out of high school, started working at Carter's Foods, sweeping floors and stocking shelves. Now, through years of hard work, dedication, and Mr. Carter's invaluable guidance, I know more about the inner workings of that supermarket, about our customers, and about the grocery business in our region than anyone else. Mr. Carter had told me, her voice thick with emotion, that he couldn't imagine entrusting his life's work, or indeed his hopes for Chloe's happiness, to anyone else but me. I had proposed to Chloe shortly thereafter, and we joyfully decided to marry, both of us determined and excited to build up Carter's Foods together, to take it to new heights while preserving its community spirit. Now, Chloe and I are essential partners, an inseparable team, both in our lives and in our shared business venture. While her official title at Cole Foods is currently Senior Sales Manager, and she will transition to a strategic role with Carter's Foods, she is, in effect, my co-manager, my most trusted advisor, and my equal in every way. Her influence, backed by her father's significant company, is as strong, if not stronger in some areas, as mine as the incoming co and co-owner. With Chloe speaking so decisively, so confidently, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that Cole Foods, at her and her father's direction, could and would end its substantial contracts with Vance General Hospital and Vance and Associates law firm at any time, should we deem it necessary. The immediate cessation of business from a major supplier and client like Cole Foods would undoubtedly have a significant, perhaps even crippling, financial impact on both of the Vance's primary enterprises. It certainly wouldn't impact Carter's Foods or Cole Foods in any negative way. In fact, it might even open up new opportunities. "Very well, Liam," Chloe said, turning back to me, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of righteous anger and satisfaction. "Given their unconscionable behavior, let's proceed with that termination of contracts right away, shall we? First thing Monday morning." "Wait, hold on just a moment," Mr. Vance suddenly yelped, whirling back around from his hushed phone call, his face a mask of panic and desperation. His earlier arrogance had completely vanished. You don't need to decide something so crucial, so drastic, here on the spot, do you?" "Surely not." Her voice was now wheedling, almost begging. Let's all just take a moment, take a breath, and talk things over calmly, rationally, as sensible business people, please." "Oh, that's rather odd, Mr. Vance," I said, my voice dripping with an irony I made no effort to conceal. "That's a sudden change of tune. If I recall correctly, weren't you the one who, just a few moments ago, so vehemently declared that any further discussions would have to go through your lawyers? And that I, your worthless, uneducated fool, would be held liable if I spoke too hastily or out of turn?" I allowed a small, cold smile to touch my lips. "Given those dire warnings, sir, I'd be far too terrified to answer you lightly now, wouldn't I?" "Well, how utterly impudent. The nerve of this boy." Mrs. Vance huffed, though her voice lacked its earlier conviction, her eyes darting nervously between her husband and me. "Mr. Miller," Chloe interjected smoothly, taking control of the situation once more, "has already indicated, and I concur, that he no longer wishes for Cole Foods, or by extension Carter's Foods, to supply products to, or engage in services with, a hospital or a law firm run by people who demonstrate such a profound lack of integrity and basic human decency as yourselves. Feel free to reject our business, Mr. Vance, if you prefer that narrative. the outcome will be the same. Well, I have never, in all my born days, heard such rude, disrespectful words from a young woman. Mrs. Vance shrieked, her voice cracking. She's like a monster, a harpy. A monster, Mrs. Vance? Chloe repeated, raising a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Truly? Given what we've witnessed here today, I think you and your husband are by far the far scarier, more monstrous figures in this ballroom. My goodness, Arthur, say something to them, will you? Do something, Mrs. Vance pleaded, clutching her husband's arm, her face pale and distraught. Enough, Eleanor, Mr. Vance snapped, shaking her off, his mind clearly racing, desperately trying to find a way out of the disaster he had created. You stay out of this now. You're only complicating things further with your hysterics. Mr. Vance held his head in his hands for a long moment, lost deep in thought, the picture of a man cornered. He kept shifting his gaze back and forth, from me and Chloe to his bewildered and now silent family members, genuinely, visibly torn between the desperate need to preserve his lucrative businesses and the ingrained, almost pathological, need to uphold his family's twisted sense of honor and social superiority. I found I couldn't understand, not even remotely, the concept of preserving family pride to such a self-destructive, hypocritical extent. This just won't do at all, Mr. Vance finally mumbled, her voice strained. The fact that you, Liam, are a high school dropout. It is, as we've stated, entirely unacceptable to our family's standards. It's a blemish. Our family, the Vance family, prides itself, above all else, on being highly educated on our academic and professional pedigrees. But, he paused, swallowing hard, the next words clearly tasting like ash in his mouth. Perhaps. Perhaps we could find a way to renegotiate the terms of our agreements? To continue the deal with Cole Foods? We would even be prepared to pay a premium, a significant extra percentage for the equipment and supplies if we could just keep doing business. To ensure continuity. If we lose this contract with Cole Foods, if that vital supply chain is disrupted, it would be a catastrophic issue for us, for both the hospital and the law firm. After all, he added, attempting a weak, ingratiating smile that didn't reach his desperate eyes, finding a new, reliable business partner of Cole Foods' caliber isn't easy for either of us. Now is it, Liam? Or for Mr. Cole? Don't you agree? Surely we can find some common ground, some mutually beneficial arrangement? I heard Chloe let out a soft, almost pitying sigh beside me. It was a sigh of utter exasperation. Mr. Vance, she said, her voice devoid of all emotion now, flat and final. This conversation, this negotiation you're attempting, is well and truly over. After delivering any currently outstanding orders as per our existing contractual obligations, Cole Foods will be formally terminating its business relationship with both Vance General Hospital and Vance and Associates law firm, effective immediately thereafter. You are, of course, entirely free to find other suppliers for your medical equipment and food service needs, and other corporate clients for your legal services. What? But I'm offering this concession, this premium payment after all. Mr. Vance spluttered, his face contorting in disbelief and dawning panic. But that's your response? Your final answer? He gestured wildly towards me, and from him, from someone who didn't even manage to finish high school. The audacity. There was no hope here, no chance of any genuine remorse or understanding from these people. They were irredeemable. Exasperated beyond words, sickened by their blatant hypocrisy and their continued, reflexive insults, even in defeat, I turned away without uttering another word, intending to return to my seat. In that instant, with that final, dismissive insult hanging in the air, Mr. Vance snapped. His carefully constructed facade of desperate civility shattered completely. You disrespectful bastard, he yelled, her voice raw with impotent rage, lunging at me from behind, his hands outstretched as if to grab or strike me. Caught completely off guard by the sudden physical assault, I lost my balance and stumbled backward, bracing for an impact. It was at that precise, chaotic moment. "What do you think you're doing?" Chloe's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Ah!" A startled yelp escaped Mr. Vance. I looked back, regaining my footing, to see that Chloe, with astonishing speed and deftness, had moved between us. She had expertly blocked Mr. Vance's flailing hand with one arm, then, with a swift, almost imperceptible sweep of her leg, had knocked him completely off balance. Mr. Vance, a man of considerable bulk but little grace, went sprawling to the polished ballroom floor with a heavy, undignified thud. The entire room, or at least the sections nearest to us, fell into a sudden, shocked silence as dozens of heads turned to see what had caused the commotion, the loud crash. But Chloe, ever composed, ever in control, calmly explained to the bewildered hotel staff who rushed over that Mr. Vance, in his exuberant celebration, had perhaps had a little too much champagne and had simply stumbled in his drunken, albeit joyful, state. Her explanation was delivered with such cool conviction that it was, for the most part, accepted without question. Looking over to the relatives table, I saw the entire groom's family, the various Vances and their kin, wide-eyed and utterly silent, watching us, watching their patriarch on the floor, without uttering a single word, their faces a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and perhaps a dawning fear. I turned, took Chloe's arm, and we returned to our seats, the red inked paper with its insults still lying on the table. Chloe sat next to me, smoothing her dress, looking as if nothing whatsoever out of the ordinary had just happened, though a small, satisfied smile played on her lips. The wedding ceremony and reception continued, remarkably, smoothly from there, the incident quickly becoming just another ripple in the sea of celebration. The ever-gracious hotel staff, at Chloe's quiet but firm request, graciously arranged a last-minute slot for me to give my speech, my toast to Olivia and Noah, near the end of the event. When I finally stood to speak, my voice clear and strong, the room filled with genuine, warm applause, especially from Olivia's friends and our side of the family. Seeing the bride and groom's radiant, happy faces as I spoke of my love for my sister and my hopes for their future filled me with an emotion so profound, so overwhelming, it almost brought tears to my eyes. "Liam, that was such a heartfelt and truly beautiful speech," Olivia said later, her eyes shining as she hugged me tightly. "It truly showed how much you love and care for me, for us." Noah, standing beside her, clapped me on the shoulder, his expression one of sincere gratitude. "Thank you so much for today, Liam, for everything. It meant the world to us." I was genuinely, deeply grateful to have shared this momentous day with them, and especially grateful to have had Chloe by my side, my fierce protector, my unwavering champion. A few days after the wedding, as promised, Cole Foods officially terminated all its existing contracts with Mr. Vance's hospital and his law firm. The financial repercussions, I later heard through the grapevine, were immediate and quite severe. While Vance General Hospital and Vance and Associates law firm may now struggle with equipment shortages, catering issues, and the loss of a major client, potentially affecting patient care and legal services, it is, as Chloe rightly pointed out, no longer my concern, nor hers. When Noah learned the full, unvarnished truth of his parents' appalling behavior, from a combination of Olivia's account and what he pieced together from his shell-shocked relatives, he came to see me, his eyes filled with tears of shame and remorse. He apologized profusely, over and over again, for his parents' despicable rudeness, for the humiliation they had put me through. I assured him, sincerely, that I had no intention of making a bigger deal of the matter than it already was, and that, most importantly, things between him and me, as brothers-in-law, wouldn't change. He was Olivia's husband, and that was what mattered. Visibly relieved, and with a renewed respect in his eyes, he went home. Later, however, I heard from Olivia that Noah, with her full support and legal assistance, had taken the difficult but necessary step of formally severing ties with his parents. With Olivia's expert guidance, he had taken legal steps to ensure that any unwanted contact or harassment from his family, particularly his father, would incur significant penalties. He had, it seemed, learned a valuable lesson from his own relatives' habitual overuse of legal threats and had swiftly and effectively turned the tables on them. To be honest, I was truly, immensely relieved that Olivia and her husband had decisively cut ties with those toxic relatives. It was the best outcome for everyone's long-term peace of mind. Next up is you too, you know, Olivia said to me a few weeks later, her eyes sparkling with happiness as she and Noah visited Chloe and me at our apartment. Yes, Liam, Noah chimed in, a wide, genuine smile on his face. You and Chloe deserve all the happiness in the world too, my brother. That's right, I said, exchanging a warm, loving glance with Chloe. I absolutely can't wait to see Chloe as a bride. Olivia gushed. I was sure she was already planning. She's going to look absolutely stunning. We'll have to find the perfect dress. Lately, I've been getting more and more of these gentle, not so subtle nudges from my sister and her wonderful husband, urging me and Chloe to set a date for our own wedding. Chloe and I just exchanged a knowing smile, saying in unison, one of these days, very soon. Grateful for this profound happiness, for the love of my sister, my future wife, and my supportive friends and mentors. I threw myself into my work at Carter's Foods with a renewed sense of dedication and purpose today, my heart full.